All right, let's do a deep dive into something I think we all want to get right, the squat. You shared this expert-led video breaking down common squat errors, how to fix them, and I'm like, yes, let's get into it.
It's amazing, right?
Yeah.
Even small errors in your squat form can lead to like way bigger problems than you
Oh,
think.
for sure. Like what kind of problems?
Well, think reduced effectiveness.
Yeah.
You're not getting as much out of your workout.
Yeah.
Plus, an increased risk of injury, which nobody wants.
Nobody wants that. Okay, so let's break down these errors and the solutions. And I love that we're going literally from the ground up, starting with the feet and kind of working our way up the body, like a form checklist almost.
Yeah. It's really helpful to see how each part of your body kind of affects all the other parts during a squat.
Right, because I'm assuming like it's
Right.
all connected, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so first up, a super common one, heels rising off the floor. Have you ever caught yourself doing this? I feel like your body almost wants to tip forward.
It happens all the time. And it's a problem for a few reasons. First, it throws off your balance, obviously.
Yeah.
So the whole movement's less stable.
Right.
And especially, when you start lifting heavier, that instability, it's not what you want.
No, more wobbly probably equals more chance of hurting yourself.
Exactly. Plus, you're not going to be able to generate as much force if your heels are lifting up.
Yeah.
Like imagine trying to push a heavy object,
Mhm.
but you're standing on your tippy toes.
Yeah.
It's just not as powerful.
So heel lift equals basically me cheating myself out of a really good squat.
That's a great way to put it. The video actually makes this really good point about this being linked to like ankle mobility. They even show like a side-by-side comparison of a good squat with heels flat versus one with the heels lifted.
Mm.
And it's pretty clear.
So what can we do about this? Like if I'm squatting, I catch myself lifting those heels. Any like quick fixes?
There are. The video has these great verbal cues. You can just kind of tell yourself, right? Like feet flat, sit on your heels. And my favorite, drive through your heels. Like really feeling that connection to the ground.
Okay, yeah, those cues make sense. But what if like just thinking about it isn't enough? What if like my ankles just aren't there yet in terms of flexibility?
Yeah, you might be right. You might need to specifically work on that ankle mobility.
So what does that look like? Like give me the goods. What like exercises or stretches will actually help?
Yeah, so the video doesn't explicitly mention like specific exercises,
Right.
but there are a ton of resources out there. Simple calf stretches can help a lot. Also, think about dorsiflexion. So bringing your toes up towards your shins, there's drills for that too.
Got it. Ankle mobility is added to the to-do list. But I feel like sometimes, even if I'm aware of it, my heels still kind of want to come up. Any other, like, tricks?
There are some cool, like, nonverbal strategies too.
Yeah.
So one is to squat facing a wall, maybe like 6 to 12 inches away, so not right up against it. But this will literally prevent your knees from going forward, which forces those heels to stay down.
Oh, I like that. It's like a built-in form check.
Exactly. There's also the wall squat, but this time you're facing away from the wall. And the idea is to just lightly brush your glutes against the wall as you squat.
So it's encouraging you to use those glutes more.
Yep. It's all about proper weight distribution, and you guessed it, keeping those heels glued to the floor.
I love it. Simple, but effective. Okay, let's move on to the next common culprit, knee valgus, which, let's be honest, is just a fancy way of saying your knees are doing the knock-kneed thing.
Yeah.
Have you ever caught yourself or maybe someone else at the gym doing this, like with their knees collapsing inward during the squat?
Oh, yeah. It's way more common than you'd think. And this isn't just like an aesthetic thing,
Yeah.
When your knees cave in like that, it puts so much extra stress on the joints. You're talking potential knee pain, worst case injury.
Oh, yikes. I definitely don't want to be putting my knees at risk. So how should our knees be tracking?
So the video highlights that your knees should be tracking directly over your toes. They actually show, like side by side, this correct tracking versus that inward collapse. And it's pretty startling to see how much stress that can put on your knees.
Okay. That visual is helpful. So are there any like verbal cues that can help me remember to keep those knees in line?
Absolutely. So you want to think about activating those outer hip muscles. So some cues that might help are knees out, drive the heels, and then spread the floor, almost like you're trying to like widen the ground beneath you.
So if my knees are tracking inwards, does that mean it's possible my outer hip muscles are weak? And if so, are there exercises I can do to strengthen those?
Absolutely. And the video actually gives one, which is squatting with a resistance band around your knees.
Oh, I've seen people do that at the gym. I always wondered what that was about.
It's actually pretty genius. That band adds resistance. So as you push outwards, it's helping you build awareness and really engage those often neglected hip muscles. It's like a little nudge in the right direction, literally.
Okay, so we've covered the feet, the knees. Let's move on up the body, shall we? The next error is hips rising faster than shoulders.
Okay, picture this. You start your squat, and your hips just shoot up first, then your torso catches up, almost like in this jerky motion.
Yeah,
It's like your body's playing catch-up.
it's a great way to put it. And it's a problem because when your hips rise before your shoulders, you're putting like so much extra stress on your lower back,
Yeah.
and you're not using your leg and core muscles effectively.
So less power, too, I'm assuming.
Mata. The video shows how this really like messes up the flow of the movement. In a good squat, your hips and shoulders, they rise together smoothly. But when the hips pop up first, your torso and shins end up almost parallel. And that's like a big sign that something's off.
Okay, I'm definitely guilty of this one. So what can I do to break this bad habit? Like, are there cues that'll help me kind of coordinate my hips and shoulders? So think of it this way. Imagine a straight line going from the top of your head down to your hips. You want to maintain that line as much as possible. Some verbal cues. Drive the feet, stay tall, and then chest up.
Oh, I like those. Those are good. And it's all about like staying engaged, keeping my whole body aligned.
Yes, you got it. It's like a full body reminder. But if you're really struggling with this one, there's this really simple nonverbal strategy you can try.
Do tell.
Squat in front of a wall, just like we were talking about with the heel lifting fix. But you don't need to be as far away. And this keeps you from leaning forward too much and automatically kind of helps your hips and shoulders rise at the same time.
So the wall's like my squat buddy.
Exactly.
Okay. On to the next error, and this is a big one. Rounding of the upper back. I think we've all been there, especially when the weight starts to feel heavy, like you just want to cave forward.
Oh, yeah. It's almost like impossible to resist, right?
Yeah.
Especially, as you start pushing to your limits. But even though it's common, it's so not okay. Rounding your back during a squat, especially if you're lifting heavy, puts so much pressure on your spine. We're talking serious risk of injury.
So even a little rounding is bad? Like, I'm guessing there are, like, different types of rounding.
Yeah. The video mentions that rounding can happen in different parts of the back. You can have rounding in your lower back, which often happens when your pelvis tilts backwards. So that's called a posterior pelvic tilt. Or you can have rounding in your mid and upper back where your thoracic spine is flexing forward.
Okay, hold on. Pause for a sec. What is the thoracic spine?
It's basically like the middle part of your spine. So like where your rib cage is.
Got it. Okay. So no matter where it's happening, rounding equals bad news. So I need a visual here. What should a healthy back look like during a squat?
Yeah. So the video actually shows a correct squat. And the takeaway here is that you want to maintain a natural curve in your lower back. So that's called a lordotic curve. It's kind of like a gentle inward arch.
Okay.
Like a gentle C.
I see it. Okay. So how do I prevent my back from turning into a question mark when I squat?
Verbal cues can be super helpful. You can try pull your shoulders back and down, touch your butt to the wall behind you.
Oh, yeah.
Like you're trying to reach it with your tailbone.
I like that.
Tight core, sit back.
Ooh, I like that last one. Sit back. That makes me think about engaging my glutes and hamstrings.
Exactly. It's not just about keeping your back straight. It's about using the right muscles to support that posture. Now, for a more hands-on approach, you could try just gently, touching between someone's shoulder blades as they squat. Just like a little reminder to keep those shoulder blades pulled back and down.
Oh, it's like a subtle way of saying, hey, remember that back. I love it. Okay, ready for our final error?
Bring it on.
All right. This one is all about bar position and setup. And we're going to cover both back squats and front squats.
This is so important.
Yeah.
This is the foundation. If you're not setting up correctly, everything else is going to be off.
Makes sense. Okay, so let's start with the back squat. I feel like, you see people at the gym fiddling with that barbell all the time. So where exactly should it be sitting on my back?
So for a back squat, that center of the barbell, the part with the knurling, should be positioned right in the middle of your back. Think about resting it across your traps, so those muscles on the top of your shoulders. And you want to grip the bar just slightly wider than shoulder width apart. Make sure that your hands are even on both sides.
So even hand placement is important.
Oh, huge. The video actually shows someone with the bar properly centered and hands even versus someone who's off center and uneven grip. And you can see how that unevenness affects their whole posture, their stability.
So, okay, an uneven bar setup could actually throw off my entire squat.
Absolutely. Now, let's talk front squat. Where should that bar be positioned?
Yes, let's talk front squats.
So for a front squat, you're going to have that center knurling resting on the front of your neck. So across your clavicles, those are your collarbones, and the front of your shoulders. Your elbows should be high and pointing forward, almost like you're creating like a shelf for the bar to rest on.
Wow. It sounds like for front squats, you need a lot more upper body strength, stability to even like hold the bar correctly.
That's a great observation. And that's why front squats are often considered, a bit more challenging for beginners.
Yeah, makes sense. So this whole setup thing really emphasizes symmetry and balance. What if like my bar is tilting to one side, even though I think I've set up correctly? Like, what does that mean?
That's a great question. It could mean that you have some muscle imbalances. Maybe one side of your body is stronger than the other, so you're unconsciously compensating. That's why those verbal cues like push evenly through both legs and square your hips are so important.
So it's not just about like where I place the bar, it's about making sure my body is working together to support that weight.
Absolutely, yeah. You want to think of your body as a team working together.
Okay, so I get that verbal cues are super important, both for setup and like throughout the movement. But is there anything else I can do to make sure I'm setting up correctly?
You know, sometimes a hands-on approach can be the most helpful, especially for beginners. Having someone physically help you get under that bar and make those tiny adjustments to your position can make a world of difference.
So it's like having a personal spotter for your form even before you start the lift.
That's a great way to put it. It's all about feeling confident and comfortable with the setup before you even start moving.
Love that. Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here. We've gone from our feet all the way up to like that bar position, and I'm already feeling more informed. I'm ready for part two. Okay, welcome back. We are knee-deep in these squat mechanics, and I'm already thinking about my next workout differently. So where do we go from here?
Well, we've covered all of those major form errors from the ground up, literally, feet all the way to bar position. So now I think we need to shift gears a little bit and talk about squat depth.
Okay. So we've got the form down, but how low should I actually be going? I've heard of like ass to grass squats, but is that realistic for everyone? Because I know I personally struggle with that.
Yeah, no, you bring up a great point. And the video actually emphasizes that ideal squat depth, it's not one size fits all. It depends on your anatomy, how mobile you are, even your training goals.
Okay. So how do I figure out like what my ideal depth is?
So the video uses the parallel squat as kind of a general guideline. Basically, you want to squat down until your thighs are about parallel to the floor.
Okay. I mean, that makes sense. I've heard that before. But why is parallel like considered the gold standard? What's so special about that depth?
Well, it's kind of a sweet spot. You're getting a good range of motion without putting too much stress on your joints. Going deeper than parallel could be okay for some people, but if you don't have the mobility for it, you're kind of asking for trouble.
So if I can't hit parallel without my form breaking down, should I just keep like forcing it?
No, actually, if your form is being compromised, it's a sign that you need to work on, like mobility, flexibility, before you try to go deeper. Remember, quality over quantity. It's better to have a shallower squat with great form than a super deep squat that's putting your joints at risk.
Okay, so prioritize form over depth. But what if I can go deeper than parallel? Like, is that bad?
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
If you have the mobility and your form is solid, going deeper can increase the challenge, work your muscles a bit differently, but it's not essential for a good squat.
Okay, good to know. So now I'm curious about the different types of squats. We got back squats, front squats, goblet squats. Do they all work the same muscles?
So they do hit, many of the same muscles, but there are some subtle differences. And the video goes into each type and kind of how the emphasis shifts a little bit.
Okay, I love that. Let's talk about those differences. So we already talked about the bar placement for back squats, but what makes those so popular? Why are they like the OG squat?
I think a big part of it is that back squats are considered a compound movement. So that means they're working multiple muscle groups at the same time. Talk about efficiency.
I like that. Hitting a lot of muscles at once. Sign me up. But specifically, which muscles are getting that love during a back squat?
So they mainly target your quads, your glutes, your hamstrings. But then, don't forget about all those supporting players. Your core, your back, even your calves. They're all helping you stabilize during the movement.
Wow, that's a lot. No wonder it's like a staple in strength training programs.
Exactly. They're great for building overall lower body strength and power.
Okay, so what about front squats? We talked about the bar placement, but how do they differ from back squats, like in terms of muscle engagement?
Yeah. So with front squats, the emphasis shifts a bit more to your quads and your core because, the weight's in front of you, you have to stay more upright, which really challenges those muscles on the front of your body. So that's called your anterior chain.
So if I want to, give my quads an extra burn, I should prioritize front squats.
They're definitely a good option for that.
Yeah.
And because of that upright posture, they also tend to be a bit tougher on your upper back and core, too.
Mm.
You're having to work harder to keep everything stable.
Now, I've noticed that I need more mobility to do a front squat correctly, especially in my wrists and shoulders. Is that a common thing?
Yeah, you're right on the money. And actually, the video mentions that if someone's struggling with front squats, it could be a sign that they have limited mobility in their upper body.
So it's like a built-in mobility test. If I can't front squat properly, maybe I need to address some tightness or restrictions up top.
That's a great way to think about it, yeah. And working on those limitations can not only improve your front squat, but your overall movement too.
I love that. Okay. Last but not least, let's talk about goblet squats. Am I right in picturing myself holding a weight close to my chest, like a goblet?
Yes, you
Yeah.
got it. And that positioning is key because by holding the weight in front of you, you're automatically kind of counterbalancing the load, which helps you maintain a more upright torso.
Oh, so is that why they're often recommended for beginners?
Precisely. Goblet squats are kind of like a gateway drug to proper squat mechanics, I think.
I love that.
Because that weight in front helps you naturally keep a better posture, and it reduces that common tendency to lean forward.
It sounds like it's just a really good way to groove the right movement pattern before you move on to heavier back squats and things like that.
Exactly.
Mm.
And it also, encourages a more natural breathing pattern too, because you don't have a heavy barbell pressing down on your chest. So it's easier to kind of breathe comfortably through the movement.
Okay, I like that. A squat that helps me breathe better. So we've got back squats for overall strength, front squats for that quad emphasis, and then goblet squats for kind of learning the ropes. It's like a squat buffet.
I love that analogy.
The key is just to choose the variations that match your goals and what your body can handle at that point in your training. I feel like, so much of this comes down to self-awareness, really paying attention to how my body feels during each squat.
Oh, you are so right. And the video makes this big point about listening to your body and making adjustments as needed. If something feels painful or off, it's probably a sign that you need to back off or maybe modify the exercise a bit.
Yeah. Okay, we're back for the final part of our squat deep dive. I'm excited.
Yeah, we've covered a lot, haven't we? All those common errors, how to fix them, talking about individual squat depth, even different variations.
Yeah. We really went from those basic building blocks to now, realizing there's so much nuance to this one movement.
Exactly. And in this last part, I want to touch on a few more, kind of advanced concepts that the video brings up that can really, elevate your squat game.
Hey, bring it on. I'm ready to level up.
Right. One thing that really stood out to me was this emphasis on bracing and breathing.
Okay. I've heard those terms thrown around the fitness world, but honestly, I'm not totally clear on how they apply to squats. Can you break it down?
Of course. So bracing, it's all about creating a super strong, stable core. And you do this by engaging your abdominal muscles, your back muscles. Think of it as internal armor for your spine.
Oh, okay.
So this is what protects you, especially when you're lifting heavy weight.
So it's I'm creating my own built-in weightlifting belt.
Exactly. Now, breathing is a crucial part of this bracing. The video explains this technique called the Valsalva maneuver. Have you heard of this?
Vaguely, I feel like it rings a bell, but I couldn't explain it.
It's pretty simple. It involves basically taking a deep breath and holding it while you brace your core. It's kind of like you're trying to exhale forcefully, but you keep your breath held.
Okay, yeah. I've definitely felt that pressure in my core, during heavy lifts and stuff. But why does that help with breathing?
Well, when you do the Valsalva maneuver, it increases the pressure inside your abdomen. That's called intra-abdominal pressure.
Okay.
And this added pressure actually helps to stabilize your spine even more and allows you to transfer force more efficiently.
So it's not just about holding my breath randomly. It's about using my breath strategically to actually boost performance.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. The video even goes into like the timing of the Valsalva maneuver.
Hmm.
You want to hold your breath throughout the toughest part of the lift and then exhale fully once you've completed that part.
It sounds like mastering this could really make a difference in my squat.
It absolutely can. This is one of those things that kind of separates like the seasoned lifters from beginners.
Okay, Valsalva maneuver officially added to my list of things to practice. So what else caught your attention in the video?
Another thing that I found fascinating was this discussion about foot pressure, like how your weight is distributed during a squat.
You know what? I've never really even thought about what my feet are doing during a squat. I just kind of assumed they were just there.
They're definitely there, and they're doing so much more than you think.
Okay.
The video explains that you want to think about maintaining what's called a tripod foot.
A tripod foot, like a camera tripod?
Exactly. So you want to imagine these 3 points of contact on your feet.
Mm-hmm.
Your heel, the base of your big toe, and the base of your little toe. And the pressure should be like evenly distributed across these 3 points.
Okay. So that makes sense. That creates a stable foundation. Because, like, if the pressure was only on one point, I'd be way more likely to, like, wobble around or something.
You got it. It's all about creating a really solid, stable base from which to generate force.
Okay, tripod foot. Got it. But, like, what happens if I mess that up? What if, like, my weight shifts forward onto my toes?
That's a pretty common mistake. And it can put a lot of stress on your knees. Plus, you lose that stability power.
And what if I'm leaning back too far, like onto my heels?
Also a problem. That can limit like how deep you can squat and can put extra strain on your lower back.
Okay, so like with so many things in fitness, it's about finding that sweet spot. Well, this has been an amazing deep dive. Thank you so much for like walking us through these insights and for reminding me that there's always more to learn, even with like a basic exercise like the squat. I feel like I'm walking away with a whole new level of squat confidence.
That's awesome. Remember,
Yeah.
knowledge is power. Go out there and squat with confidence and precision.
Thank you so much for joining us on this epic squat adventure. And remember, even like the most seasoned lifters, they're always learning and refining their technique. So keep practicing, stay curious, and never stop striving for that perfect squat. Until next time, happy lifting.